What's good, fellas? Patriarch Panda here. In today's video we're going to be exploring the hidden details of Metal Gear Strive, all their background stuff, all their quirks, how the assets all work together, kind of like the stage video. So if you guys enjoy this, be sure to like and subscribe as we look at some of the deeper details of Metal Gear Strive, including Season 4 with Lucy. Starts off Saul Badguy, of course, the main character of the game, but you'll notice in the low res, he actually doesn't have his rock hue on his headband. He still has the writing everywhere, like here, it says "Fight Fire with Fire," which I believe is his clothing brand slogan, as it is plastered all over his body. This text here I can't read, but of course there's also the riot, which appears to be the logo of the brand. He also has the writing on his sword, the Outrage 2. And again, there's more of this all over his chest. When it's actually the high-res model, you'll see that it says rock hue, and that a lot of these super effects for the Dragon install is actually baked into the skin and not the model itself. The model itself is very superb to look at, with a lot of cool gear icons about it. Very well done for something that's used for one animation. It's honestly absurd how pretty this is to look at. And the wings are massive, and just those are massive, and you know, it's a pretty cool looking super. And when they come to the transition period, they kind of just do a model flip in a matter of like mere moments. You don't get to see it. I looked about for a mini Saul, I couldn't find it, but they essentially just flip the assets right there and then. He goes back to being Saul Badguy, and god damn does he look angry. In the high res they show off, does say rock hue. And the 6S, I thought they had some pretty cool details with the normals, the fact that this fire flame actually comes from a specific part of the Outrage Mark II. So some of the animations are very goofy to look at, like this Fafnir here. Looks so off when you look at it from a normal angle compared to the fighting game angle that the game gives you, because they use a lot of hit effects and stuff like that. So it looks more normal, decent point of view. And again, these animations just look pretty on Saul Badguy. So much effect and flares. Kiske, the main man himself, tells like this on his sword. The United Kingdom of Illyria. Nothing can be done without hope, glory be the kingdom. A lot of cool writing on the sword, but I couldn't tell what it was saying. And again, a lot of logo and writing base that you've seen. Love, truce, correct error, I believe that says, and hope, love is a kingdom. So as the crosses on his legs, and during this super, I want to point out, during the high-res model, there's a lot of cool details, like the way the sword bends and the way the hope stands out on the super when he does ride the lightning. Now, Dragon install has a really cool detail. For example, the model doesn't change whatsoever. It's actually an effect that's baked into the camera, which I thought was very cool. It lets them do a lot of detail, as I believe a lot of these are actually hand-drawn. I wouldn't be surprised with the way they animate. And you can see with the model, not a lot changes for Kiske besides the arm, the face, and the hair. The arm gets this cool dragon scale look, and the lightning hope barrier looks bigger. And I could be wrong, but I believe the font is also a different kind. In terms of the hair, it actually goes all the way back of his head. I would say Kiske looks sick. Up next is May, the character who'll take you to SeaWorld, one of the jellyfish pirates, and she has a ton of writing detail over her body. She has the mascot on her back, and on her badge it says, she has this badge that says Iron Hammer of a Maiden, and this is one of the main slogans that are all over her weapon, as you can see here. She also has writing on the anchor, it says Jellyfish Pirates, and again Iron Hammer of a Maiden, and this is also said on her boots. She also has a leg tattoo. And overall, that's a lot of the details when it comes to the character. But up next is the Dolphin, and how it has some peculiar details indeed. Assets are loaded below the ground for May's attacks, and then when they're done, also disappear into the ground. And look how this poor squishy fella is. He's so squishy. and then he disappears into the ground. Again, looking here, you'll see this is the same case with the seal, even freezing as he loads out. Same thing goes for the Orca, which I thought was very interesting. The Orca actually has some good design. I thought it'd be a mirrored image when it comes to the eye patch, but no, the other side does not actually have an eye patch, and I thought that was very nicely designed. I was kind of shocked by that. I thought it'd be a mirror. Again, he just goes under, and look how funny May looks here. And of course, look at this, that big whale that comes in slamming its way for the win. Does also go under the map like the rest of our SeaWorld attacks. Now, funny thing about our win pose here, even though it looks 3D and very well done, it turns out every character here is actually a 2D PNG in the background, meaning May is the only 3D aspect about her win pose. Which is kind of funny because you end up realizing they've done a ton of camera tricks to make it look good, because now I've gone and made this look goofy with a different angle. Up next is Zato, the Shadow of Death, and there's a ton of cool detail. For example, his intro, he actually comes from under the ground to sell the illusion of the shadow. He has a ton of writing on his body, like walking shadow, and one light free me of all, the weight and thin of life, I think that says. Very small text, hard to read. Writing on his pouch here, but I have no idea what it says. And he does have this on his ass, the M711X, which could be a clothing brand in the Guilty Gear universe. He also has these markings on his hands and some markings on his boots. And of course, up next is the little creature himself, Eddie. Eddie doesn't really have any unique details, he's a 3D model and all that. But the main thing that makes him stand out is the fact that anytime he's called away, he actually goes under the map, as you can see here. And a lot of his attacks are actually slightly under the map, like the frog and the spikes, but besides that, it is mostly above. And this is how they sell the illusion of the shadow, by actually placing him under the ground, just a tiny bit. And all of Zato's attacks that have to do with Eddie, like the norms, are actually 2D planes that fit the camera, so no matter what, no matter how I angle it, it will always follow the camera, so I can't see how it functions 2D wise. Also goes for his 2H, as you can see. Again, some of the most beautiful looking 2D animations, and oddly enough, his 6P is the only model that's 3D. Looking at his air normals, it turns out the Eddie is actually 3D as well, so every air normal is 3D. And it is very weird and off to look at. It is very freaky deaky. Even when Eddie's in flight mode, very scary. When you look at his hands, they have these glowing symbols, and it is the same symbols that he has on his hands when they're metallic. The sword I thought was going to be 2D, but it's actually 3D, which again I thought was very cool because it sells depth. And when he does his super, it does look very grand and cool, but it turns out the shading effect is done through overlay work, and the modelling, jeez Louise, can be really fun to look at. And when it comes to his super, it definitely looks cool with different angles. I kind of wish they experimented a bit more, because this looks really cool from this shot, oddly enough. And again, the shark is 2D, doesn't matter what I do. And this is what the overlay effect actually looks like. Matching up with Zato, you can see how it kind of functions. It's very cool how the developers go about this. And Zato is never going under the ground. He may change positions, he may become like a little blob here as you're seeing, but he never goes under the ground. Also, he's 3D when he's blob mode. Up next is Chipp Zanuff, the ninja of the roster, and he has some decent writing over here, like on his blade and on his waist, but again, there's not a lot that I can really translate or really make out. It does have the symbol on his back, and I do have this mod, so I do apologise, as we are actually also has a wee blade with different writing, so if you guys want to tell me what's on the writing, be sure to do so, I'm very curious. And the 6P, I want to note this, is like, normally it looks normal, but if you look at it from a normal angle, Jesus, his arm is disgusting. Same kind of goes for his 5H, look how much it stretches out, looking like Reed Richards over here. And his JS, I thought was very interesting, they actually swap out his model put this over it and it's like a Beyblade, because this model's not underneath. I couldn't find it. And again, it's a very cool looking animation. Love the smear frames. Now his Alpha Blade is very cool because it has a ton of smear frames to sell the illusion of speed, which I quite like. And when it comes to his clones, I thought this was very interesting. It's actually an exact copy of his model, nothing special done here. And a lot of his Rika effects actually have a front and behind type aspect for selling the feel of 3D and depth on the overheads and stuff like that. And his command grab does look pretty cool, but there wasn't anything I could find that was out of the ordinary. Just uses cool animations and cool posing. But oddly enough, one thing that is actually pretty neat is that the shading effect kicks harder on the clone compared to Chipp Zanuff. Look how dark he looks in this command grab. Then watch how he vanishes. A very cool looking effect. I like this texture they use to try and hide him. So this is his super where he pulls out his clones, where it turns out it's all of his normals kind of mixed all into the one animation, except the mix-up being is that there's multiple chips. This one uses the Rika overhead, and then the other one uses Alpha Blade, and then they do tap 5D for the R, and then they all slam, giving some real cool angle work if they wanted to do a high-res version of this super. I mean, look at this. This looks fantastic. Up next is his final super, and some of these angles kind of go crazy looking at it, because they stretch the model to hell to try and sell the feeling of speed and like squash and stretch and all that. But there are some points you can look at it where it's fine and dandy and cool to look at. You even see how they actually put the bubble down before Chipp actually hits the ground, so when the camera's there it doesn't matter. They could just have that asset there. Very smart, and again the pose work that they do with him is super cool. And this is what the super looks like from outside camera angle. Quite wild, right? Yeah, Chipp Zanuff, an absolute treat to look at. Up next is Millia, and on her waist it says Lady Ivy and Ivy Traditional, Curiosity Killed the Cat on her neck, and Ivy Traditional on the hand. I believe this is the clothing brand that she wears. And the Post-War Administration Bureau is also plastered on her, the logos on her shoulder and back. Actually have this little bit for the hair to stick out to sell the illusion of the hair fighting its way out. The hair looks absolutely stunning. Some of these attacks like 2D. There's a logo on her ass that says Lady Ivy from Ivy Traditional, and then looking at her hair during some of these attacks is truly stunning. The way it transforms to look very nice and cool, turns it into a blade, turning into a flower, turning into a crown, which on frame 1 of Tap 5D, this is what it looks like. Her 2S is also a 3D thing, so I thought that was pretty cool. I was thinking it might have been 2D with some of the feathers, but no, it's completely 3D to look at. The way Mirage works on the smear frames also looks pretty cool, really sells the speed. And our hair car is actually fully modelled. Wasn't expecting that, I was actually expecting it to look at 2D in some points. And when she does Artemis, this is interesting, it's the same leg on 2D and the wings from the Winger Super, so they flipped some assets for this one. I thought that was clever. And a lot of these air normals just sort of form. And this JD actually has this cool looking blade that I just noticed now. She actually spins the blade up for the super. I thought that was really cool. And looking at our high res model for the Winger Super, it is a beautiful looking model, but then at times they do some mad stuff to make it work with the camera. And then it goes back to looking absolutely stunning as usual. Again, you see Z128 on her head. And when doing the super where she gets to the top, our model changes. And when Millia does her taunt and reads this book, there's a lot of writing here, but I can't make a word of it. That is Millia Rage, a very fun looking model. Up next is Nagoriyuki, and the absolute treat about Nagoriyuki is the way not only the mask works, not only the way the normals look, it is the way he looks without his mask, but we'll get to that later. Again, there's a lot of cool animation details, like with the way he holds the blade. There's a ton of writing that says keep out, with some writing that's very hard to make out. And here it has a ton of writing, but again, hard to see. It says heart on his back, and his second katana actually clips through the main one. Here he actually has his hand in one sleeve. For the other side of the jacket he doesn't. But let's take a look at these normals. 2S, a really cool normal, because when he's recovering, flips the blade, and this is to not only show preparation, but it's actually set up for his 2H. And my god, what a normal. Look at how he does it again, he does flip the hand. Tradition, for sure. 5H also looks pretty cool, the way it works. 6H, he does a little bump on the weapon after flipping it. Very cool detail. At 6P you can see the smear frames on the chop, completely 3D as well. I thought it'd be 2D or plain or something like that. And when he does his super, Shazuriyuki, I hope I said that right, you can see the overlay set up on the skeleton. And the high-res model changes quite the wee bit, and there's a tiny Nagoriyuki inside. And the way the blood looks on some of these specials, the fact that it's a 2D art that's just been designed so well, and the way he poses when he does the most scariest move in the game, well, pre-season 4 nerfs, goddamn.
Engage!
As his close slash, he grabs it with a reverse stance, as we see. You see him put it back in a matter of seconds, and his clone, just like Chipp, actually uses a full 3D render copy rather than using its own model. Poses are very cool, and the main thing to note is that this is actually his blade being sent out. I just noticed this detail. He sends out his blade to do the attack, and the blade itself attacks for him. Now it's time for the interesting part, Blood Rage, and how Nagoriyuki looks in general during it. Nagoriyuki pops with the blood, the sword immediately changing red, and his fangs starting to grow in. Not usually visible until the stance kicks in when you see his face. And you do get the big explosion, a lot like Slayer's 2H, the way the vampirism looks. And my god, Nagoriyuki is stunning when he goes into Blood Rage. And he's actually got a smile the entire time. This shocked me. I thought it was anger because that's what it looks like. And when the mask comes back on, you see it comes from the bauble like usual. And it slowly builds on with his face still showing with some of the detail. Look at his normals. All of them stay the same, but the main thing that changes is the expression on his face, of course. Again, look at him. He is purely smiling like he's looking forward to a challenge. He does actually have a bit of a cute smile as he's writing his poem. Look here, despite the fact he's on Blood Rage, he's happy. And there's nothing there, sadly. And when he eats his onigiri, he does go ahead and eat it from something that doesn't exist. He literally just grabs it out of nowhere and goes ahead and keeps munching. And when he does his back taunt, where he poses up, it looks dead cool, but again with a smile. And heading into his super, the big one that does a ton of damage. He gets these glowing red eyes. Again, he's still smiling away as he goes for the massive swing, and it looks like a bat's wing when I look at this super. He lands the hit. He's got that big red light. He lands the hit. It looks cool, and it looks like he's hitting a Yosha type pose here. How the mask looks while it's eating, where there's a big black part where it just kind of goes into the void. And when he does the command grab, he goes for a bit of a chomp, but there's no actual bite at all, surprisingly. And he hits this pose like, eh. But that was Nagoriyuki. Up next is Anji Mito, and during his intro, he just sort of spawns in with the fan floating in front of him, as you would expect for a type of thing like this. And when it comes to the model swap, I love how seamless it is with the fans. But let's take a look at the fella, see what he looks like. And in terms of detail, there's not a lot of writing detail. There's a couple of Japanese writing here and there. I don't know if it's kanji or not. I'm not educated in Japanese. And there's a lot of some, again, neat details in the fans, looking like wind because it's called Fujin. And his back, Jesus Christ, Anji, you can skip a back day. There's writing on his shoes, but I can't make a lick of it. And then actually looking inside the shoe, again there's some more writing, and Katsu Fagetsu, hope I said that right, is the name of Chipp's super. Now these fans here, the cool part about Anji's fans is that they all have different symbols depending on the attacks. This is how it looks between all of his normals. He hits his 2D like he's dead galaxy a little bit of. His coat also has the same thing with the symbols on the fans, and so does his tap 5D, surprisingly. Same with his 6H and his 2H of course, and even his butterfly that he sends out. The butterfly hits and obviously becomes a bird with not much of a model swap, just more of an animation, which kinda shocked me. I was surprised to see it animated like that. Anji hits this Fujin. It looks really cool with the wind patterns going all about the place, because I believe green represents wind. And don't worry about the green butterfly, I like the mods. I think these are supposed to represent all the elements. I could be wrong on that. And again, there's markings on the fan for the overhead. And when he does a spin into the fish, I thought this was really cool. It's actually a story being told about the fish going from one part to another. And again, the fans have a unique symbol. This is Parry's super. There's actually a ton of details on the fans. I quite like how it looks. And then there's a big moon in the back. And it's actually a bit of a 3D model, but there's not a way to really look at it. When he does this super, there's a ton of detail that's being put into it. 2 birds flying. Yes, believe it or not, 2 birds. The fans actually come out. There's actually 2 different birds on each fan. One appearing to be a male and the other one appearing to be a female talon. And when the super's done, they actually pair up together to maybe show unity or combinations with a big symbol on the fan. But that was Anji Mito, not a ton of detail, but looked great. Up next is Leo Whitefang, and I immediately have to go to his boys. They have the Illyricum on him. Again, I don't know why that is. Big axes on them. Onto Leo Whitefang. Watch how the model goes from high res to low res. And I think we gotta start with the blades where it says Moblice Oblige, and again the United Kingdom of Illyria, United Kingdom. And on his back it says Ignorance may kill the lion. The blades look studied on the back, and when he does tools like 5H, he looks cool as hell. And when he pulls out the dictionary right in it, the writing here is actually a dictionary. This is the layout of a dictionary, but I don't know what it says. It's very hard to make it out. Front it says United Kingdom of Illyria, and I can't make out what that writing is. I got really close and I still couldn't make it out. He just puts it away where it despawns into his jacket. And it says blades look when they're small. Cool details indeed. And again, this man is so expressive. Just look at him. The cool thing is obviously the way the attacks work. They form these cool metal sheets that kind of form like a guarded looking design. It appears that Leo has some type of metal bending power, is the best way to put it, as on any of his specials this is what will happen with giant metal attacks being formed. Now, I'm not too educated in the lore, but I bet people can tell me what's going on here, and it's very cool to see how they're actually all 3D models. This obviously puts them into his stance, and I was wondering if there was any assets underneath. To which, no, not really. You go underneath and you can maybe get a cool pose, but there's no really any assets that are coming from under the ground. And the way he poses, he's just too tough, man. And he'll do moves like this, where he looks like the goofiest character in the roster. Now you remember Potemkin exists. When he lands 2D, he's going straight with the heels, a very different dropkick. This is a very weird one. Does 6P, he's doing more of that metal bending thing. Create a copy of himself and then it disappears, where he tries to keep a cool face during it. Now, cool thing about Leo, when he does back turn, no matter what, his eyes are always focused on the opponent. So do not let the guard deceive you. He is not a gorilla. He's staring at you. He is calculating. Now he does his overhead. It's the only time he really turns around to look at you directly, to let you know that he's still got his eyes on you. And when he's done doing some of these poses, damn, he looks cool. Now when he does his super, he goes into the big X that he likes to do afterwards, you can see the way the metal forms is huge. It's absolutely massive. And this is so cool. This is his Beyblade super. But if you look at the overlay, this is how they do it. They do a ton of drawings on the screen to sell the illusion of it speeding up and spinning, even though it is. And when he does the super, this is what it looks like from a front view. It actually properly spins, pure mechanical the way it looks. And then it just goes off screen, disappears. Leo's guards look at him in the high res version after winning, usually to check up on the opponent, but I think it's because of this. Like, Leo, what's going on, my man? We have a wardrobe malfunction? Up next is Faust. On his syringe, it actually has a mark of death from 1 to maybe 6, and his gloves have this cross on them, and his arm is so banged up. And there's even a nice little brand here called Faust in Stimulation on his arm. Going into his match, you see a wee white ball, and I'm wondering why this is here, as it's always there no matter what. A frame 1 of an item looks like, as it has come straight from the chest, but there's no actual item within the shirt. I've looked about. The item only pops up frame 1 there, and then he's got this writing here where it says the wonderful Dr. Faust, and then again the t-shirt's brand us on the back, Stimulations. A merry heart does good like medicine, and that was hard for me to read. On his scalpel it also says Stimulation and Faust, meaning this is a part of the clothing brand, which is so odd. When he pulls out the flower for his forward taunt, he actually does it here, and this is frame 1 of the flower being spawned. And this flower, I didn't notice this detail through playing the game, but if you look at it here, that is a menacing looking flower. I do not like the way that looks. And when Mini Faust spawns on Faust's back, this is the way it actually looks, frame 1. But he's got a freaky wee design, doesn't he? He's got a noose around his neck, a fluffy stuffing thing coming out. He's got this wee thumbs up, little gremlin-like claws. And when Faust does 2S, he still keeps this model in the eyeball. I don't know what's going on here. And then he pops out, again changing the skin where it kind of shrinks under. When Faust does Scarecrow, you can actually see the skin and how the way it looks. I don't know what happened to him, but it looks like the man's grafted, like he's changed bodies with someone. The overhead diving Scarecrow. It's pretty funny looking, and when he does his freaky deaky throw, the opponent isn't actually in the shirt or anywhere. They kind of disappear. And when you pull up the pocket dimension, we can actually take a full look at the render. It isn't that crazy to look at. Now, of course, during Bone Crushing Excitement, this will be a thing for another video, I believe, where I show off all the reactions. The wheelchair is extremely well modeled, kind of shocked me because they don't use it a lot. And the super looks so funny from a different angle. And when Mini Faust goes off the screen, he just sort of despawns. And this is the way the items look when they drop. And that's the way it looks when he's eaten. And the Mini Faust parade just sort of despawns off screen. You can also see where Faust got the bag from. Taking a look here, it says Black Hole Donuts and Cafe, the good doctor. Up next is Axl Low, the Time Stopper. It says Thanks Luck on his sickles, and on here it says Today's Tragedy, Comedy of Tomorrow. Thanks Luck, I think, is the clothing brand for Axl. The Union Jack on his shoe, and again more of the Yesterday's Tragedy, Today's Comedy. You see here Thanks Luck with the main thing being plastered all of them with the Union Jack, and a little badge on here that says thanks with a little peace symbol. His poses look dead cool. When he does time stop, this is what happens to the world. It gets all grayed out no matter where you look. And his supers are very flashy, I would say. Honestly, I think Axl is one of the few characters where during his supers, you can look at him from any angle, and he looks fantastic. And look how this starts up into a clean form, and then the way he just spreads the fire. And again, the fire doesn't really come into effect until we go to the low res model, so that's a cool wee detail to notice. Except for Axl, not a ton of detail compared to others. And to the next one, and it is the big boy Potemkin, the way he drops out the sky. It is very high up in the sky from what I was doing with the camera. And looking at the box, there appears to be a ZEP on it and a number. that matches with the barcode on Potemkin's shoulder, 929176. I think the property of Zep tends to be the text there on the back, not normally readable. But yeah, let's get into Potemkin. He's plastered with references, like the Zep on the collar. This is supposed to say Armor Clad Faith, but in the low poly you don't see it. And getting up close, he actually has a facial model underneath. On his gauntlet it says Burly Heart, which is a reference to his old song. Same with his hands, and he has SMP on the shoulder. Burly Heart is on the shoes, and on the back it says, when there is a devotion in your heart, you will be very loyal. Gauntlets say that they were produced by Zep, and a certain date that we don't know. And he does 6p, his legs actually do fold off camera, which I thought was kind of cool. You don't see that detail. And his eyes during anything, he's just so expressive. Look at him. A funny pose. Mega Fist, he actually has a red part representing his mouth, which I thought was kind of weird. I wasn't expecting that. And when he does Gigantor Kai, all the locks pop open to start the electricity field, which I don't know where the cogs are actually coming from. I think it's his back. And when the gauntlets expand during his taunt, oh wow, they are stunning. The pure mechanisms when it comes to the animation really do stand out. And when you do Heat Knuckle, they stand out even more. The drills actually sticking out and hitting for every hit. It looks fantastic. Watching the animation in motion, how it cycles between every single one as it's hitting. And then the explosion has a love heart as a reference to his tattoo. And the explosion frame just looks godly, not gonna lie. And when he does his air throw, he's actually holding the opponent with 2 fingers and his thumb to hit them with the fist, and when he does his recovery animation on Potemkin Buster, it looks very cool. But the Heavenly, a lot of the effects when it comes to the fire actually comes onto the screen and not actually a part of the animation. Under his mask you'll see that his face is there, there's a high-res version of his mask with the details, and Armor Clad Faith is on the badge at the top. This Heavenly Potemkin Buster, there's 2 Hindi gods in the background. I'm not too educated on this, so if the chat wants to have a bit of fun, go ahead and tell me. When he does his Heavenly, the reaction is still pretty on screen despite being off screen, as you can see. And just like that, they come out of their domain expansion, go into the Heavenly, and you can see a lot of the rocks and the fire effects actually come from the screen. And then they add additional ones around Potemkin and the model, and it looks fantastic. But yeah, that was Potemkin, looking awesome as always. A ton of detail for sure. Ramlethal! Now this is one where I wasn't able to find a ton of details, but the ones I did find were very interesting. And watching her go from high res to low res is very funny. Sword that says right here is where DM left, which is very funny. And on the sword there's a lot of cool details for sure. A bond plaster, I don't know what it is if I'm honest with you, and a lot of writing that's hard to make out, but here it says, here in the middle of nowhere, I'm home. There's also text here. And on her feet it says, what is left when you lose all your rights? And on her teeth it says, here in the middle of nowhere, these shall be slain. It says on every single tooth, Special Rapid Deployment Brigade, and just west of wherever, here the rain. There's a whole poem going on this character's coat. Teeth are actually fantastically done. For her sword going under, it does actually go under. What is left when you don't have all your rights? And her beam super is very funny looking, where she actually stretches out to set up the entire beam. And to go with the animation, there's a big green particle effect, and it goes on forever. Look at it, it's like a torch. The funny thing is, the beam isn't actually even hitting the opponent. Look at this angle, it's not hitting the opponent, but that's the trick of hitboxes in that. And when it comes to the rock and the sword, it does go underground. But in terms of Ram, ton of details with writing, but not much else. Giovanna, and there's actually a lot to work with. On her taunt, she actually has a communicator that goes up and down. And on her back, there appears to be a clothing brand for Latina. This is Latina. And on here is a badge saying Special Agent, and it's the same for her gloves. And her shoes have a very cool dog print on them. She also has writing on her shoes, but I can't really make it out. Now, funny thing about Giovanna is that she has some really funny animations. When she does stuff like 6p, her fist becomes massive. And look at this taunt here, it genuinely looks like she's petting the dog. It looks fantastic. When she does her 214k, this kick here, the dog is actually biting the opponent as she kicks around her leg, which I thought was a pretty cool detail. I didn't notice that. sort of spiral arrow attack she goes through with the dog, and you can see the frame where the dog turns into the energy around her, and you see she's more likely to land a drop kick than an actual spiral-like attack. The way the dog just squashes and stretches for a lot of her attacks is truly stunning to look at. Now the most interesting thing is putting up the gauge, because then you get She-Hulk Giovanna, and she has a lot of red accents going on, like with her nails, her lips, her eyebrows, and she also shares the pattern with the dog. And when she does this super with the dog, it turns out there's a ton of assets being reused for Giovanna, whereas the dog has a bunch of unique animations. For example, she's doing JH here, and then the dog is able to catch for a drop kick, where Giovanna's doing an air dash to catch the opponent on the landing. He looks so cute, look at him. And when she catches the opponent, she does 6H, 6H into her DP before the final hit. And here you can see she actually gains a tail during her cartwheel super, which I thought was dead cool. I thought it was an awesome detail until also see it disappear. And when she's in her in-between of going between She-Hulk and Giovanna, it looks nice, it really does. But that was Giovanna, a ton of details, and a very fun character to look at. Up next is Ino, and she just spawns in from the ether, no way to find her. And when she calls in her guitar, it literally just comes down. It literally just comes down, very easy as. My god, she looks fantastic in this game. By going to the low res, when she walks back, she has this cheeky wee smile on her. And a lot of her logos are Limitless Desire and Marley November with a date. I don't know what it says, but again, Limitless Desire appears to be the main thing. And on her guitar, it appears the branding is called Damned. It's plastered on the top and on the bottom. And on her wrist it says ID, and her boots say Damned with the label saying ID on them. But yeah, her hat has some neat detail with a funny face and the branded top called Calypso. Hope I said that right. A very funny looking hat indeed. And looking at her eyes, depending on where the camera is, her eye colour changes. Again, this is to match with the thing that she has changing eye colour. When she does tools like 5H and 2H, you can see it spurting out the ground. When she does /, it here makes a synthwave type thing. And I noticed this on her belt, it says come woo me, for now I am in a festive mood, which is Shakespeare. She does tap 5D, she pulls a speaker out of the ground to which it sends out a big giant note for a hit. And look at that mouth, pure freaky. If she calls her mic, it literally spawns in, there is no underground work, and it looks like a proper mic, surprisingly. And again, the hat is very expressive, look at that, freaky. I actually like the detail of this super, a lot of players won't really notice it, and that is the fact she's blasting a tune into the center of the hat, and the hat is sending it through a speaker to deal damage, so this is kind of like a pure amplifier that she's rocking through right now. A detail the player won't really notice. When it's stuck in our command grab, they get stuck on this pattern that is actually absurdly hard to look at. Even with the invisible mod, it'll never happen. And look at this, the wings spawn in really weirdly to match, and when you look around, you'll see that she has these own branded speakers that says Paprika. Big fan of that for sure, and as you can see, there's not a whole lot of variation between the red and the white speakers, besides obviously being the same branding, except these have two different crowns, which I thought was very interesting. When she sends out the super, you can also see when it's the notes instead, it says warning everywhere with a 2D symbol, and as you can see, she sends out pure love hearts with the yellow fuzzy things in the center. But that was Ino, and she is stunning. Goldlewis, the first DLC character to cover, and this big chunky fella doesn't really have a ton of detail, but a whole lot of accolades and badges instead. On his back it says the Secretary of Defense of the United States. He has his watch, shoe horse. It says warning extraterrestrial, do not enter, and it gives you an emergency contact number of Area 51 all over it. Again, a lot of detail goes within the coffin, and of course the alien itself. And looking inside, there is no model. All there is just a chunk every time you need to make something. So, no spooky alien inside, unfortunately. But the alien's detail certainly comes into the minigun, where it's got some text here that's very hard to read. And it's a very well made minigun, surprisingly, for a move that's hardly utilised. And you can even see the animation from whipping it back. So Goldlewis has a unique factor where two of his supers use a high-res model. And looking at this, there's text on the glass is hard to read. And this is how big the orbital laser is. There is no peak, it is only up. And when the glass shatters on his glasses, it is actually a detail that's baked into the camera. Again, get used to this aspect, but you can see where it lines up. When the opponent gets taken away, they just sort of despawn with the laser, selling the fact that they've been kidnapped by the alien, as there's a crop circle in the center, and this oblivious fool is thinking about pizza. My lord. Details on Goldlewis. Next is Jackal, and a lot of her detail actually comes from the ball, but look at this, there's Jack in the Box on her waist, and everywhere, obviously the Hallows Eve, I can't tell that first word is, but it says or retreat. It also says Jack in the Box on this funny wee thing, and that is the head that she uses for attack. And of course with the Jackal pose there's a lot of things to note, for example her 2K. What is the woman doing to her spine? This is not normal. This is not normal, that is gross. And when she does 2D, the ball actually rolls. And looking at her JK, again, she's no normal, as a scorpion. And our minions have a ton of detail for sure, with multiple animations that the player probably wouldn't notice while fighting the character. Again, they all have different faces, and even have wee wings, which honestly made me thought they were a bit weirder. And here they are, all despawning away. When she kicks them into them, they all have unique expressions for getting hit. And when they power up, they feel a whole lot stronger. Hell of a lot of the animation quality for Jackal definitely comes down to her super, as it grabs the opponent, kind of chomping them into this coffin made thing, which does the Hyper Lesion Driver, which spits out the opponent and shows that it even has freaky teeth. I am not a fan of the way that thing looks when its mouth is open, that's all I'm going to say. That was Jackal, not a whole lot of writing detail, but a fun character for sure. Happy Chaos, and this fella has a ton of detail, walks on every opponent and they all have a reaction. On his chest he has a marking with text, it's hard to read, same with his shoulder, can't tell what it says, and the same with his hand and gloves. On his belt it says null, and there's also a symbol on it. On his gun there's more text that is very difficult to read if anyone can read it, would like to hear what it says. And when he actually shoots the bullets, there is a line to show where the bullets are going, despite being a frame 1 move. And Happy Chaos' expressions with the gun are very funny to look at when he's just staring at the camera. The cool thing about reloading his gun, you can actually see he reloads all the bullets you shot. I shot 6 and there's 6 casings. And he does focus, he puts up his glasses to shoot, which kind of feels like the opposite of shooting range glasses. And when he does his super, it goes to his high-res model. We see a lot of the effects are baked into the camera. And something to note that I was trying to figure out, on the high-res model there's text on the line of his glasses. Of course the super animation is really sick as he shoots into a portal and creates multiple portals around the opponent that hits them for a ton of shots. That was Happy Chaos, a freaky deaky man for sure. Up next is Baiken, and a lot of her details are certainly in the fact that she uses multiple different weapons, and her intro here is purely baked into the screen on the overlay. I'm a big fan of the way this looks. And it's the same with her outro as well. Look at this, this is just stunning. And it turns out the house in the background is the same one that Baiken uses in the insta-kill to kill her opponent. It is slashed to hell. So this is a rune that she's left in Exards. So if you think about it, this is a pure villain activity that she's showing that she's bet you, and welcome to the insta-kill house. And this is giving real driving in my car type vibe. Goggles still showing her blind eye that's been scarred. And her sword doesn't really have a ton of detail. Of course, she still has markings on her waist and on her shoulder. The main thing that I think stands out is the plethora of weapons. Look at her JD. This thing is funny looking. It's like a dragon-headed mouth thing. I don't know what it is. She does far slash. Look at the bend of her sword. She is forcing that out to attack with. And when it comes to her 2S, she just sends out. It's a big spiky ball on a chain type thing. And then you can also see it disappear into her arm. She does 2D, I thought this was a funny note, not much of a gooner, but when she does 2D, she sends out one kick, hoping that she can hit them, and if she does it, she relies on the second one, And then her breasts cushion her fall. Jesus, woman. And she is so fed up with it as well. And looking at her Kibari, this is very interesting. It's the same thing that's used for 2S, except it expands and becomes a claw hook thing, which I thought was cool. I always thought it was a claw hook thing. I didn't realize it was the spiky ball. And when it comes to the ball in the chain, it does have some writing on it that's Japanese, but I don't know what it says. A very cool looking design. When it comes to her Yozansen, she summons 5 blades to create a fan-like effect. And when she pulls out her drink, she literally spawns it. And it's the same for her wee pipe that she likes to smoke on her back taunt. And if you look at the wee pipe itself, it actually has a wee marking on it, a little lotus. Gun's super that uses the firework, you can see it fold and actually become fully usable, reminding myself of more of a flintlock pistol, where she strikes the match and it sends out a firework bomb to which it explodes, causing a big grand firework hit. When it comes to her super animation, it's very funny because the details you're not supposed to see make this a very funny super look at on the facial expressions. And when she lands the hit, you see it does some very nice effects with this. I believe this is called the 12 Noon Blade, could be wrong. And then you've got the text in the back. Don't know what it says, but it really says the F word to me. That's all I'm going to say. Keep it PG. And as you can see, the moon is a 2D plane that follows the camera. It's slicing through. Just an amazing effect. That was Baiken, and I've got to say, the arms on her are very sick to look at. It adds like 12 reasons to play the character. Up next is Testament, the Grave Reaper. The intro is very funny, not because of this, but because of the Zam Daniel face that the Siphon makes. When posed, the cage effect is actually done through the camera, and there's nothing in the cage. There's no succubus. They all leave the screen. He makes a pose, and as you see, teeth are clipping through face for this animation. For low res, and as you can see, there's a bunch of text and symbols on their shoulder and arm. Text on the blade itself, hard to read, and you see that the skeleton is actually attached to a spine that's attached to a hand, which is pretty freaky. So a skull on the hat, and there's also some clippings and skulls on the waist, with text and everything. Very hard to read though. And the way the hair just flows over their face is ridiculous. Reminds me of Slash, and when they do 2H, you see the blade spins and it's pure weird. This is 6p, this is a cool detail that they do. They do a 2D plane over the hand, selling the effect that it is a 3D motion, but it's actually a 2D hit. Looking at 5H, I was shocked. Didn't realize they were hitting with the back of the scythe, and again the blood detail. And look at these taunts, the bird looks fantastic, and they know what they're doing with this pose. And look at the T, they like it dirty, which I'm not a big fan of myself, I like it more creamy. And when they send out the Grave Reaper, you can see that the blade itself disappears as it becomes the blood for the skull being sent out, and it comes back moments later. When you do Arbor's Sign, the scythe goes underground, not really having much of an expression, but the blood disappears with this demon coming through, almost like a summon circle. It does the chant, and there's some text on it. I can't really read it, but I'm going to assume it's demon text. The super uses the exact same head with the exact same text, same model, except it is much bigger. Now when it comes to the succubus super, there's a ton of detail I noticed. For example, the way the overlay works to try and summon them. Then there's the way they actually animate. Look at this, they're working as a team to kick your ass. Like she's like throwing her through her legs and then they both swing together from a low and down upward angle. They just disappear when go back to being the crow. And that was Testament, truly stunning character. Up next is Bridget, and there's a ton of detail on the plaster here. It says growth, and there's some type of writing band on her head. It says AO2, which I'm going to assume is a branding. And there's some small text here that I can't really read, if I'm honest, so if you guys want to tell me, go ahead. And this appears to be everywhere, like on her arms and on her shoes, which are very funny looking boots, if I'm honest. She also has this little mechanism to attach for her heelys, which I think is smart. Next to our yo-yo, you can actually see there's some string attached to the finger with a wire. And our yo-yos actually have chambers called yo-yo bullets 250, which is very funny. And when she sends out a projectile, you can actually see it's got two ends, one with bullets and one with the casing, which I think is cool. And on the heelys you can see it attaches just perfectly fine now. When she does this yo-yo spin, you'll see that they have like 6 models of the yo-yo until she lands, and when she does her throw, she throws Roger right into the opponent. With not a lot of details on Roger besides a little banding, there's not a whole lot on this fella. It says rock and roll from what I remember though. And he's very adorable with her. And as you can see, when he's being bad to the bone, he gets a whole bike, and the bike model is actually 3D. I thought this was going to be 2D, but no, it's a fully 3D model with a fire effect. Shocked me, I wasn't expecting that. And you just see him disappear off into the screen. And when she does her super where the little Roger Bear goes ora ora and she goes yo 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 yo, you can see that they pose up together, doing a little thing before they start punching away. And look at the little guy just throwing hands, not really doing anything, as the yo-yo is the only thing that does damage here. As you can see, the hit sparks are way bigger compared to the punches. And then a big Roger appears with not much detail despite the fact he's just bigger. Bridget's detail definitely goes towards her yo-yos rather than her character, but very fun animations. Up next is Sin, and this man has a ton of writing plastered all over him, saying "Don't ditch, hello," the branding being absolutely everywhere, with a thing that says "We can go anywhere" on the right side of his belt, and on the left side of his belt it says "We can do anything." On his trousers it says "Idea makes death." This is the main slogan: we can go anywhere, we can do anything, nothing is impossible, which appears to be plastered all over the flag and his hands. And when I saw this, I immediately thought Scotland and had to stop myself. The details on the flag, but it's mostly just the same slogan, same message plastered all over. Nothing too unique there. The main thing that makes Sin stunning is the way the flag moves. It's genuinely authentic. I think most of the animation detail went into the flags. And looking at his E animation, they put a ton of work into this. This actually upsets me. Every bit of food has their own E animation, and even has their own little recovery thing. And you can see there's a ton of effort put into this. Why is this a dead move? You can see on the fish, when he bites it, the bone comes off. To look at it, he does just whip out of nowhere like every other character when it comes to their food, water, whatever. And when he goes to take a bite of it, you do see him go for the chomp, and then it squashes and stretches until it gets sucked all up, disappear, and then he'll always throw away the stick. Looking at the Ride of the Lightning, this is a bigger super for sure, with a cool overlay effect being done on the screen to sell the circular feel of the flag going around, as it sets up a summon circle that he powers through to make his Ride of the Lightning stronger with his own symbols. No hope on this one, sadly. And then he bursts with a mighty explosion. And looking at it from a different angle, you can see the flag is insanely massive. But that is it for Sin. Up next is Bedman and Delilah, and there's a ton of details to talk about for sure. It does say dream-like reality on his face, and it also does have a spike, and this is where it attaches when he does head bombs. It does have a freaky eye vein. There's Winori, I hope I'm saying that right, on the hands. Dreamlike reality is the main slogan all over his body, even where it's broken. And you can also see the bed frame itself does actually make a skeleton and a spine, and I think that is so freaky. I do not like that detail. You see the broken hand here, not fully functioning anymore. It says deja vu on his wrist. When he sends out the spike, it becomes a big giant one of the smaller ones. And I love Delilah's expression looking at the circular blade, just like, Jesus Christ, don't hurt him. And again, a lot of these animations are beautiful. Not only are the attacks good looking, but Delilah's reaction mixed into it. JH, I thought this was a cool detail, actually throws it under his legs. Go for forward throw. Again, I thought this was a very detailed throw. Delilah with a shocked expression as he grabs his own other hand like a laser and uses it like a weapon. I thought this was freaky for sure. Now when you go for Beyblade, you can actually see the body twist and contort until it turns into the Beyblade, and the eye explosion coming through. the eye. And when you do the bed install, a lot of the effects again baked into the camera. Do expect this for every super, if I'm honest with you. And you can see the expressions are so well done. Delilah genuinely looks distraught looking at this super. And a lot of the effects, nothing too crazy gets added on, nothing gets that much bigger for Bedman, but I will say a lot of the details on the bed itself and Delilah's reactions. Next is Shadow Wizard Muddygang. We got the wizard Asuka, and on his book there's a lot of writing here, but you can't really make out any of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, universal information. Got some writing on his shoulder saying something, I can't really make out if I'm honest. Has some writing on his shoes, and I'll admit, this guy has some clean shoes. And when you look at the pocket universe of this jacket, it is expansive. There's also some writing on the book here, and it's called The Backyard. If you guys want to try reading it for me, that'd be greatly appreciated. I thought it was very difficult, if I'm honest. Again, there's a ton of writing on this hand that you wouldn't see anywhere else. Again, the detail in this game is insane. There's also some writing on his chest here, can't really make it out, with a little brooch. When he does 5H, he actually attacks with a bunch of books to send out multiple blades. It looks really cool the way the books and the pages set up for these attacks. And 6H causes a giant arm to bring out a giant book, which I felt like they should have did another giant arm bringing out another giant book. I thought that would have been funny. But again, there's this writing, it's the exact same book in its hand. When he sends out the blue cube, it turns out they were grey cubes with an accent of colour, but one side will actually have one solid colour. So no, they're not grey cubes, they're cubes with multicoloured. When he does his low, it does come from under the ground. And when you do the staff, it is the exact same book that he holds within his hand, with a very cool effect with the hand warping around the book itself. He even has a little brooch in his eye, but there's not really anything I can make of the eye patch, if I'm honest. Now he does his Shadow Wizard Muddygang super Shadow Wizard thing. Ton of cool effects going on here with the book that I've never really noticed. I didn't notice his staff becomes one with the book in his hand to summon a giant cube. And it looks cool with a little pocket galaxy in it. And this is what he's hitting you with. This is a pocket galaxy book. And he does have some numbers here, I'm assuming, for his radio show. And he sits on cubes for his taunt to relax. And that is all for Asuka. Ton of detail. Up next is Season 3's Johnny, the main man himself that has ruined this game's meta. And Johnny is oddly very expressive with some shocking details that you wouldn't expect, like the ones on his brooch here. He has the J on the hat, and his belt says Down by Law, which appears to be the main, clothing brand for this fella. They even have it on his shoe in the back of his belt, and his shoe is actually very nicely designed. Looking at 5H was a very massive normal. They bend the hat and the blade like crazy to make it work. And watching him sheath the blade is something else, I'll tell you. It looks dead cool. It reminds me of Virgil from Devil May Cry. Anyway, he does JD. This is so Sonic Adventure coded. And when he sends the card, it's the exact same one in his Joker Trick Super. Performing Mistfinder is very interesting. The blade will come out insanely quick. We're talking 2 frames for the attack. It becomes massive, and so does his hat. It stretches him out. Now he does Whiskey Bunker. This is actually a cool detail. I wasn't ready for this. The whiskey has a ton of detail. It's Buccaneer. Yeah, they even have the volume of alcohol and everything. Fully branded alcohol here on the whiskey, and I wasn't expecting it, if I'm honest. There's some things on the tequila here in the background. Again, I'm actually shocked, and he does break it, but it doesn't break it first. They use 1 frame of it being still to smash it into glass and into fire, which again, cool detail. When he sends out the card super, he does hold a card within his hand, and looking at the other side of it is the usual Joker Trick card. So he's lying when he sends this out. He sends out, it goes, is this your card? And then it becomes the Queen of Spades. That's how magicians are doing it. And looking at the back, it's the usual stuff, and when you slice it in half, it becomes the Joker card with the back of it also being the exact same. And when he does his J super, there's a ton of detail here. If we can read this writing better, I'd love someone to tell me what it means. I swear that top word is meth. When he backs up, this animation is insane looking at it from a backwards angle, is that he constantly teleports back and forth to sell the illusion of speed. Again, the J for Johnny, very sick to look at, cool animation, and Johnny for sure got some nice animations and details I wasn't expecting. Next is Abba, and this is one of the characters I was excited for. Key on her head, and their branded appear to be called Hoinim, and I can't really make this out, but if you guys want to tell me what it says on the text I can't read, I'd love to see. She got some amazing details on her key and on her bandages. And my god, woman, please arch your back bear, that looks sore! She also has the same branding on her waist, and the key has belts, living to Guilty Gear tradition. Belts are everywhere. Her shirt also actually has some writing, and when she bites on the chain, you can see that Paracelsus is really expressive in the animations. I wasn't expecting to see how expressive he was, like during 5H, his eyes are going up with the brand being shown. When he does 2S, she's actually grabbing his ears and yoinking it. I wasn't expecting this. And then when it's getting yoinked up, goes boing as he sent back right back up. And when you do JH, this is the only animation where he's smiling. You're a freak. And when she does JD, she does hurt her arse a wee bit as she's like shocked and expressed, and Paracelsus feeling the same pain for her. And cool thing about the Rekka series she does is that on the final pose, she poses like she's the man in the dance, and he is just dizzy from it. And when we go into that jealousy, we see that the key is completely changed with a new branding, and where it says Paramarum, hope I said that right, 2 on it with an eyeball piercing through. And we see the animations on 6H and attacks like that. It looks stunning with the goopy nature of it really being highlighted. Even when she does the Rekka, she has a demonic look now. And it's uninstalled time, she's shocked, she's not expecting it, and it kinda gloops its way down. You can see that the key is still freaky underneath, and Abba is still shocked underneath. Her expressions are amazing. And then they use one frame here after it's done being gloopy to turn it into that, and you see that she is actually shocked by this, and perfectly animated as well. On the key door super, you can see that there's a ton of writing detail on it, but it's very hard to make out. And when you turn the key, it gets sent around until a 2D attack-like demon comes through. I'm assuming this is the demon form Paracelsus takes. And there's even a pocket dimension in here. Hard to make out though. When she does this super, the key transforms and becomes a red, toxic looking thing. And the detail of this key is absurd. I think it might be another new one, as it's called Triaparama. Hope I said that right. And it's a completely different key. Azoth appearing on the handle, and the little guy is just so small with a random face there. What is that? You do the taunt here, you can see that there is actually red being scratched in. There's no texture or nothing, it's just actually scratched in, and she's biting her hair. And god, I wish that were me. And Abba has some cool details on her outro as well. The door is actually a cutscene that they put on the overlay. And looking for her, you can see she's just out in the void with that key. I feel sorry for the key, but not too much about the animations. Loved it. Up next is Elphelt Valentine, and this goober has a ton of animations and details on her shoulder. It has some text that's very hard to read, and it says Blast Beat appearing to be the main brand. It's the same thing on her chest. On her shins it says Blast Beat, like her gun is cut from the same brand here, F55. Got some text on the other side, and on her hand it has some text, I think it's Blast Beat. And when she shoots a bullet, she actually does have a casing that's sent out with some good detail to it. And god, she is so expressive, just being a goober in these animations, man. Like, look at her. And her 5H is also a gun with a bunch of text on it. It's hard to read, having more of a bolt lock design, but it is a same brand, F55. And the radio, I thought this was interesting. The radio is actually just a basic tool. This reminds me of the Hercule Super from Budokai, where it sends a gift and it explodes. And the shotgun here, totally inspired by Elphelt. As you can see, her sister's colours are all over it. And the grenade here, as you can see, esteem and love it says. And these grenades are pretty brutal, as she carries about 8 of them on a chain for the super command grab. hits the opponent, becomes a part of him, and when she does her super year where she gets multiple of the guns and sends out a big huge purple laser that becomes a big pink ball, she sends it, makes it explode, and then her gun actually becomes a microphone. And when she does her ton, I thought this was interesting. She actually has some text on it. And looking at her win pose, it's very interesting with an empty crowd, weird stage lights and all that. They weren't expecting you to look at this, and her expressions look goofy from different angles. But that was Elphelt. Up next is the Dandy Man, who just sort of spawns in and walks way too quickly. And again, Slayer, he has dandyism all over him, literally, and happiness is not a goal being the main text on his things. And on his belt here, it says Lilac Aether, I think, since AD 1981. Again, happiness is not a goal is the main thing that's plastered all around him, which, you know what, fair enough. And on his shoe here, he has a little pattern, a little bat thing, and he even has his iconic watch, which again, actually does have some text saying happiness is not a goal. Again, the main thing plastered all over him. And when he cleans his pipe, he's totally faking it. And then he puts the cloth away with such detail, it's insane. He properly folds it and everything, but then it despawns into the ether, never to be seen. His backdash and forward dash uses bats to mask his the fact that he's invisible and makes him respawn. The dandy step is funny. Look at these smear frames. Really putting in the effort, and 2H definitely looking cool with the overall animations on the blocking. He's shocked that you're putting in the work. A lot of rock and roll signs. 2S has some mad smear frames, and the claw fully forming when it gets up top, and you look at those nails. Ugh. When he does 5H, he has so much thrusting power, he's actually able to damage the floor. Now he does Super Mappa Hunch, bit of a jump scare here, hope you're not ready. Boom! He sends it, and as you can see, his clothes completely disappear in a matter of a frame, keeping his tie and his trousers though. But oddly enough, on his suit, when we go to take a look at it, tie's still there, so he's wearing two ties. And when he does his super, the big one that sends the opponent around the globe after taking a chomp of them, you can actually see that it's modelled very weirdly, with the teeth fully grown and nothing really in his head besides these squares, which I'm assuming is used to hide his hair for the younger version of Slayer. Overlay work is being done here with the bats for sure. And when the younger Slayer shows up, or PB Gaming, no baby, he goes for a fully charged up punch with a lot of the effects again being baked into the screen, but some of it actually being baked into the model. And here's the low res version of the model. He looks freaky deaky and goes back to being the Slayer that we all know. And when he does the super, this is what it looks like from an angle outside. The opponent goes flying away and comes right back in. Bum 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 bum. The Slayer has a ton of detail, even in his win pose, where they have to adjust the dress to make the leg kick out. It has this in the background, PNG image, and of course Slayer with his details in front of him. And my god, what a beautiful couple. Slayer, everybody. Season 4 marks the first character of Dizzy being added, and Dizzy doesn't really have any text about her. Most of the detail, I'd say, goes into the flowers and the wings designed in her hair, which is looking gorgeous. And the cool thing about her tail is it actually has two ties in it, a black one and a yellow one. She has some writing saying Valenta on the left and right shoulder, and her little demon things look very funny looking. I gotta say, they look like they're trying to dress up as ghosts. And during this taunt where he wants to freak out, go crazy, she's petting him saying like, there, calm down, big man. To what she's all like, I want to be angry though, and she's like, don't worry about it, you've done a good thing, he's no longer tweaking. Again, the animations are so well done, you can tell what's going on here without really hearing any of the words. Where one is offering apples, to which Dizzy is like, yeah, you know what, that's a good idea. And the other one offers to try and help her out here with nothing in the basket, but would you believe it, he's still able to rummage about and find the creepiest carrot you've ever seen in your life. She gives an expression of like, what the is that? And try to break it to him softly, like, you know what, I don't want this. I really don't. He's like, but bruh, alright. The animations are very well done. A lot of the ice attacks being done through her. with her spreading her arms and her closing them in, which is a cool detail to show the opposites. And when she does all of the violent attacks using this axe, which has text, it is all involved through him, to what she is in shock and awe, like, oh god, I hope I didn't hurt him. And he's like, I hope I did. And when she does her narwhal, she is super happy at first when the narwhal is spawned, as it comes about with a spike, stabbing the opponent and going right back to being a tail. But the fishies are actually 3D, I thought they'd be 2D, and the fire here from Chestnut is insane looking, reminding me of Soul Calibur. Speaking of Soul Calibur, look at the sword that is summoned. I thought she was summoning Kai's sword at first, but it's not, it's actually like a demon-like sword created from her own body. Crazy effects being done to hide it. And when it comes to the laser, the family Kamehameha, the beam will actually bend depending on the camera. And this is done so when you get up close to Dizzy that there's no beam on screen. And oh my god, the expressions here from everybody looks fantastic. I mean, look at this. You could take this from any angle and use it in like a dramatic cutscene or AMV even. It looks awesome. And this is how big the beam looks. Very massive. But that is it for Dizzy. Not a ton of writing detail, but a ton of animation and storytelling. Next is Venom, and I've got to say I'm a big fan of this, using a 2D animation mixed with the 3D, and it's so well done you don't expect it from the camera angle. But I've got to say I like the design of the hair, and this here, it says thou must play with aggression, discipline, and patience, kind of showing the 3 values that this character holds, and British elegance being the main brand all over him. He also has this on the butt of his pull cue being a skull, and some writing on his shoe saying British elegance, and some 8 balls on his legs. When he does his dive kick, he does look great with the hair going up, and these eyeballs are freaky as they all close. Again, a ton of detail on Venom's side. When it comes to the command grab, cool thing about this, the ball is actually 2D, but it's attached to the character texture, so you can't really look beyond that. When he sends the super out, he does get the Robo Kai, who's actually fairly designed, if I'm honest. I wasn't expecting this for a background character, but watch him as his helicopter takes him away into the land of despawn. And when he does his throw, it's very cool looking with Robo Kai causing an explosion, flying back, and of course just scuttling away. And he spawns in, and that is it for Venom. Up next is Unika, and she has a ton of detail with the motorcycle tunnel. I really couldn't get a camera in, I really tried, but it's too disorientating. And we can see she has a helmet that says Grand on it with her face being visible. And she just sort of rolls the helmet onto the floor, no care in the world, and the sword spawns up, getting ready to be used. But the high-res model certainly looks stunning, and you've got to see that these animations are weird when there's no context. On her chest it says Trez and TOC, which is definitely a shopping brand, and Trez appears to be everywhere. That and Anidia, hope I said that right, also being a branding everywhere on the clothing, with some writing on the zips here that I can't really make out. Also has New Ida on the jacket and has some other logos on the shoes. The cool thing about the sword is that it is a massive AC/DC reference, Thunderstruck being the main thing, and of course AC/4C, you replace the 4 with the D, which is the 4th letter in the alphabet, get AC/DC, which I thought was very funny. You can hear you got 13 on it and caution, and a lot of writing basically saying, yeah, this sword is pretty busted, be careful. When she does her J8, she swings this with some force, and when she does JD, she actually kicks the lightning out first, and then shoots the second lightning blast through the gun. And you can see the way the gun morphs, definitely cool, the way it splits off the barrels, and the little heat chambers for it to cool off after it's done. The way Unika looks, definitely funny looking that she's actually shooting a trigger. But yeah, the gun actually shoots a trigger, and the main thing to note about the gun is the thing that you can see that's visible, Kai's sword, which has the Kingdom of Illyria written on it, which I thought was an awesome detail. And it made me realise that this character is an homage to Xrd playstyle Kai Kiske, having a lot of those attacks like the Gun Dipper and Greed Saver. Her super has a ton of the right the lightning features, but with none of the writing. And again, the Anstall super, which is pure awesome. I absolutely love the fact that it's an homage to Dragon install, but also being a kind of a Dizzy install if it's more accurate in my opinion. Again, with the face being done weirdly to shape it with certain angles, I mean look at that, my lord, that does not look right. She gained access to Kai's sword, and starts flying away with some seals, sacred seals to approach. And as you see, she gets a tail like Dizzy, the little bow tie. And she does look fantastic for sure. And when she does the dive, certainly got that Kai energy. And when she does the annihilation, this looks a lot like Dire Clat, the way he swings it around for a big slashing attack that leads to a big pickup or damage. And again, it just pure remind me of Dire Clat. But yeah, sends the opponent down, looks awesome as hell. And Unika on her wind pose, looks good normally, and then you check it from a different angle and it's like, oh, that's a goober now. But Unika, fantastic. Up next is Lucy, and there was a lot for me to catch on the intro, the super, and the outro. This character moves a lot, and I've got to say, Jesus Christ, it's so hard to keep up with the details. But they did so much, giving her 2 different dimensions to work with for her intro. My God, is it stunning to look at. But yeah, in terms of the detail, I think it mostly went into her intro and outro because her model doesn't really have anything except this walk back animation, which is a definite match to the show I've never seen, and a lot of the wires actually come from her wrist, which I thought was kind of freaky if I'm honest. And you can see it whips around for massive attacks, probably deals some good damage in the world she's from, not in ghillie gear though. And again, when she does a lot of these attacks where it uses a ton of power, she's actually hacking the opponent here, as you can see, going through all the numbers like the minigames in the game. I wasn't expecting that, kind of shocked me. And when she pulls out the gun, it is actually a proper 45 cal with the corporation on it here, saying conventional arms, and got some numbers and registrations on it. Looks like a cool gun for sure, even with its own casings without the bullets. But yeah, she's super happy going for this cross up, as you can see here. And when she does the hacker mode thing, where she tries to hack away the opponent, you can see she's playing the mini game, looking away for weak points on the character. Again, ton of details here, purely from the game Cyberpunk, and maybe from the anime, I'm not 100% certain. But I'm a big fan of the way this all looks. And as you can see, when she goes into Super, it's another domain expansion type thing where it's in its own place, own realm. And it's so peculiar to me. I'm like staring at this like lost. I'm like, whoa, I bet if anyone knows the anime, they can 100% tell me what's going on. But I'm looking at this going like, it's stunning to look at. It's very trippy, a ton of visuals to it. And the way it just cracks at the end with all the hacking and all that being done. As you see, she breaks through for the kill, shattering the opponent. And taking a look at it from different angles that are more back so you can see what's properly going on, it's very tricky to keep up with. Again, I really pull it back to see what's going on here. And it's like, wait, what's happening? And then I need to get it again, and I'm like, okay, let's take a look again. Again, there's so much, it's hard to keep up with. But Lucy, definitely a love letter to Cyberpunk and fighting games. I gotta love it. Strive team did amazing with the character, with a lot of her animations looking good from any angle, anywhere. And I gotta say, they nailed it out the park for their first guest character. But that is it for today's video. If you enjoy, be sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And be sure to tell me any details that I missed. I would love to hear all about it. Tell me any details that were in the video for sure. And tell me what your favorite thing was. And that'll be it for a Strive video for a wee while. I'm going to be focused on 2x KO. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.